What are the characteristics of an unpopular girl? That's the question burning up 15-year-old Tomoko's insides, so she asks her best friend, the internet, about it. Based on the results, she learns that unpopular girls are just ugly girls who are inexperienced with boys. Given what we know about unpopular girls, is Tomoko, a tiny, scrawny, croaky girl with messy and unkempt hair and eyes that look like they haven't seen behind her lids in God knows how long, unpopular? Of course not. With a haughty smile, she thinks back to the 6 times a guy has spoken to her in middle school. Once was to ask to share her textbook, once was to ask for what their next class is, the list goes on. Plus, every time a guy speaks to her, she always responds with a barely intelligible stammer. Since Tomoko deduced that she's just so experienced with boys, she proudly announces that she's popular. Now that she's about to be a high school girl, she can finally try out the moves she's learned from all those dating sim games she's played. According to Tomoko, she's been a high school girl for 50 years in those games, and those virtual boys have done well to prepare her for the real ones. With all the dating games she's played, she's pretty much ready for her reverse harem. The question is her reverse harem ready for her? The answer is no, because there's no reverse harem to begin with. The excitement Tomoko had for her new high school life quickly turned sour in just 2 months. She's yet to utter a single word to anyone all the hours she spent at school, and she's pretty sure that no one's looked her way yet either. While Tomoko's by herself in her little corner in the classroom, she panics over her massive unpopularity to the backdrop of her girl classmates chattering. They're talking about how they went to karaoke the other day, and the more Tomoko feels left out, the more her anxiety catches up. She quickly appeases herself by promising that she isn't jealous and that those girls are just boy-crazy morons, and any guy who would be attracted to them is sure to be a piece of garbage. Besides, if those are the kind of people she has to hang out with, she'd rather be alone. And now that Tomoko is no longer in the cusp of convulsing over her lonely plights, she smugly thinks that she almost feels sorry for her classmates having to live such cliché lives. Just as class is ending, Tomoko fantasizes about doing so well in their upcoming tests that her classmates will flock her and basically worship her. But once she snaps out of her reverie, she finds herself all alone in class. On the way out, she overhears her different classmates talking about hanging together, leaving Tomoko to wish that the aliens from Gantz or the monster from Parasite would show up and get rid of everyone. Like I'd be that lucky, Tomoko thinks bitterly as she walks over to the gate. Her thoughts are then interrupted when a male teacher tells her to be careful on her way home. Tomoko freezes up, barely able to compose herself. After creepily staring at him and abruptly bowing, she dashes off, overwhelmed as someone's finally spoken to her. At home, Tomoko continues to contemplate her dilemma. If she could talk to her mother, she could talk to anyone. She laments this thought while making coffee, but she eventually dismisses her ability to speak to her mother because even recluses can do that. She focuses on the goal to recover her personable and charming middle school self, or the girl who talked to 6 boys for that matter. So all night, she tries to practice her social skills by doing different things. First, she plays the dating game that she already perfected. As expected, the simulated conversation and back-rubbing session with her virtual boyfriend goes well. Still, she finds herself unsatisfied with the outcome. Next, she tries dressing up as what she thinks a cool girl would look like. But staring at herself only causes her to experience Gestaltverfall, a phenomenon wherein the longer the person stares at one subject, the more distorted it gets. This has Tomoko hurling on the nearest bin until she composes herself. She then moves on from one crisis to another as she observes that she's not actually ugly. If that's the case, then why isn't she popular? Is it because she's short and flat-chested? But since she's small, shouldn't she be getting attention from freaks who okay, gotta stop you right there, Tomoko. Suddenly, Tomoko covers her eyes while looking at herself in the mirror, manically chanting that she's so hot it burns, and that men everywhere know her by name. She finally comes to the conclusion that her eyes are what's making her look stressed and haggard. So she wears her father's glasses to cover up the eyes, which show her blatant disregard for her personal health. But she doesn't stop there. With the help of the internet and the vigor of taking a potato chip and eating it, she searches high and low for ways to make boys look at her. The compiled result of her experiment is the combination of messy hair, exposed forehead, duck face, and overall looking disheveled. The moment her brother, Tamaki, sees her, he yells, asking who's that ugly freak. After her brother's horrible reaction, she realizes that changing her appearance is wrong, and that she should focus on the actual problem. And so, Tomoko goes to converse with Tamaki for practice. Tamaki looks similar to her, with his messy hair and equally tired eyes, but he seems much more well-adjusted than his sister is. With Tomoko pestering him, he gives her the cold shoulder, though when she starts going through his things, he yells at her to go die. The word seems to have invoked something morbid in Tomoko, and recognizing this, Tamaki quickly apologizes, saying that he didn't actually mean it. Unfortunately, she's already going on her disturbing tirade about how she's playing life on hard mode ever since she started high school. Then it'll be nightmare mode when she enters the workforce. Given that, it makes sense for her to just skip straight to the end. Increasingly worried, Tamaki tries to divert her attention by asking what she went to his room for. So Tomoko promptly tells him that she wants him to rehabilitate her back to her old sociable self. And to do that, he needs to talk to her for 1 hour every day so she can practice. He doesn't quite get her plight because Tamaki's always been pretty popular as a member of his middle school soccer team. To get him on board, she talks about offing herself again, so he finally succumbs to her request. Defeated, Tamaki asks her what she wants to talk about, and Tomoko immediately asks him if she's cute. Average, he responds without passion, spurring Tomoko to ask him all about the nuances of average. It quickly becomes clear to Tamaki that he just set himself up for a long time of suffering. The next day, Tomoko stops in front of the teacher who greeted her yesterday. With a trembling voice, she bids him goodbye, and he tells her to take care as she goes home. This interaction makes Tomoko float in the air, satisfied that she's finally had a normal conversation with someone. Overjoyed, she rewards herself with a sweet treat before going home. She meets an attractive guy at the convenience store that further boosts her mood. Tomoko decides that she can do more things other high school girls do with their cheerful vibes, so her next stop is the manga store, where she reads 20 books. Lastly, she visits a famous fast food chain to try their burger. Amazed by how the burger tastes, she devours it in seconds. She realizes how fun it is to do average high school activities, though she acknowledges that they would be more enjoyable with friends. As if on cue, her classmates arrive, and without noticing her, they sit close to her. Their presence strikes a strong fear within Tomoko, as she worries that they'll judge her for being alone. This makes her run to the bathroom to recreate her version of a popular girl from last night. When she walks past her classmates, one of them observes that she's wearing their uniform, but he can't tell who she is. Just as Tomoko thinks that she had successfully disguised herself, she confidently makes her way to the stairs, only for a familiar face to greet her. Tamaki stands there frozen, staring in bewilderment as he wonders what the hell his sister is up to. He walks on at the insistence of his friends, and without saying a word to Tomoko, he continues making his way up. But once he and his friends have passed her, one of the guys comments on how hideous Tomoko is. Hearing this, Tomoko freezes up in horror while Tamaki awkwardly tells his friends that he didn't notice. That night, Tomoko is sat alone in a swing. She silently looks on with an empty gaze, as if mulling over all that happened. Tamaki approaches her, and after some moments of silence, he asks if she wants to walk home together. Tomoko sadly agrees. One weekend, Tomoko's lying in her bed, all hot and bothered while listening to a steamy CD of yandere boys verbally attacking her. Her little indulgence is suddenly interrupted when she receives a call from her only friend in middle school, Yu. Though she's taken aback, they agree to meet next Saturday for a quick catch-up. After ending the call, Tomoko reminisces about her geeky and unpopular friend who used to get low grades at school. She horrifically realizes that she hasn't seen Yu since middle school, so all they'll be talking about is their high school life, or for Tomoko, her severe lack of one. Although her student life hasn't been as exciting as she wants it to be, she still has 5 days to turn that around. With that, Tomoko resolves to be as energetic and positive as possible to attract some friends, hoping that she'll be able to tell Yu stories that would really wow her. Unfortunately for Tomoko, she really is playing life on hard mode, and she didn't get a single luck stat. For starters, she eats more breakfast than usual for extra energy, but this only has her puking on the street corner. So during her first half of her class, Tomoko's stomach is already grumbling for food. She takes tiny bites of her meal, and since she's Tomoko, she believes that her supposedly cute way of eating lunch will catch the others' attention. Unfortunately, no one even gives her a second glance. Tomoko grows even more disappointed in her classmates as they can't even see the appeal of hungry characters, so she tries to look for other things she can tell Yu. Her plans get derailed, however, when she hears from her classmate that their art class will be done in pairs. Tomoko is immediately struck with horror. This all too acute horror of having to look for a partner and ending up without one. So instead of going, Tomoko performs a strategic retreat and pretends to be asleep in the nurse's office. Finally, fortune seems to be smiling at Tomoko for once when she finds out that there's a guy sleeping one bed apart from her there. Her mind automatically thinks that sleeping in the same room as a guy is basically the same as sleeping with him. Well, she's not wrong, at least in a literal sense. After escaping art class and sleeping with a guy, baddie Tomoko walks home, thinking that she finally has a story to share with Yu. 4 days pass and Tomoko still doesn't have any good stories to tell Yu beyond her little incident in the nurse's office, and the number of fluorescent lamps on campus, and that the anatomical models in her school are all unisex. During class, Tomoko is fantasizing about getting tag-teamed and being in pain over her imaginary deflowering when her art teacher asks her to go to the faculty room. There, she finds another guy who didn't attend the last art class, so they have to do their work after school. Later, Tomoko and the student are alone together in the art room. Though she's her usual awkward self, she can't help but wish she had been partnered with a good-looking guy so she could at least tell Yu about this. Tomoko tries to glance at the boy, only to find him glaring intently at her. Stunned and a bit scared, Tomoko frets, not knowing why he was looking at her like that. After just a few seconds of scribbling, he hastily stands up and bids her a curt goodbye. Before leaving, the boy puts his artwork on the nearest table. As Tomoko stares at the paper, she figures that he probably doodled something simple, so she does the same. Afterward, Tomoko grows curious about what the boy drew, so she decides to look at his work, and what she saw wasn't something that she saw coming in a million years. In her delight, she stammers out a request to the teacher, asking for a copy of her art partner's work. Tomoko is excited and elated to have another story to tell Yu. Saturday comes, Tomoko brings the drawing to their little reunion, smugly thinking that she'll have her friend all surprised. But to Tomoko's absolute shock, the Yu she knows is different from the Yu now. Gone is her plain and geeky friend from high school. Dyed blonde hair, no glasses, and most importantly, bouncy tatas. Yu has become the very epitome of what Tomoko wants to be like in high school. Though Yu's friendly with her, Tomoko is stiff and awkward. She has crisis after crisis, where one moment she's wondering if Yu's trying to seduce her with her miniskirt to being in complete awe of how good she smells. Briefly, she tells Tomoko that the people in her school go all out, so she had to get contact lenses just to fit in. Tomoko remains quiet around her, but as soon as Yu mentions anime, she perks up. Here she realizes that while her friend's appearance has changed, she's still the geeky Yu that she knows. After that, Tomoko just keeps talking, and it's like everything is how they used to be. Later on, Tomoko is about to show Yu the drawing when Yu suddenly talks about how she wishes that things were like how they were in middle school. Seeing the vague sadness in Yu's face, Tomoko must have seen herself in her. Without hesitation, she asserts that they can still do things they did in middle school, so she takes Yu to the arcade. Tomoko may be bad at a lot of things, but when it comes to arcade games, no one can beat her. The two of them have a lot of fun together, with Yu saying that she wishes they went to the same school so they can still see each other every day. When the day ends, Yu has to go, but she tells Tomoko that she wants to hang out more often. Since Tomoko knows that something is weighing down on her, she suddenly calls out to Yu. She admits that she too thought that her high school life would be fun, but it isn't. Still, she's trying her best every day, so she encourages Yu to do her best too. Yu is moved by her friend's words, and she thanks her for them. Tomoko is relieved that she looks happy again, especially since she believes that Yu has been on the same lonely boat as her. Her relief quickly turns into shock, however, when Yu reveals that she had been upset all day because she had her first fight with her boyfriend. While Yu's talking about her and her boyfriend, the half-catatonic Tomoko blocks out her words by putting on her headphones and playing her Yandere Boy CD again. On Tomoko's miserable way home, she remembers to look at the drawing for a little pick-me-up. Her face lightens when she opens it, showcasing a decent drawing of her. Meanwhile, the boy who drew Tomoko's portrait is in the manga club room. His fellow member comments that all his crowd filler have the same creepy face, and it's revealed that the guy is drawing a bunch of crowd fillers with Tomoko's face. He answers that it's just the face he can draw the fastest, so the club member lets it go, saying that those characters aren't important anyway. As for Tomoko, she's completely oblivious to the fact that the way the guy drew her had nothing to do with her. It's revealed that the last item on her stories to tell you list is someone made a cute drawing of me. Because of that, she spends the rest of her weekend with a happy mood.